Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today I'm going to be reviewing Surviving Westcliff by Thomas Perkins. This is a book that was assigned to me as part of the judging process for SPFBO. Now, what's SPFBO, you may ask? Let me tell you. So, SPFBO, that's probably the first time I'll get that right 100%, is the self-published fantasy blog off. This is a self-published fantasy competition started by Mark Lawrence, author of The Book That Wouldn't Burn and many other stories. Now, he basically has an open submission for hundreds of self-published fantasy books, and those books are then randomly assigned and given to different teams of reviewers, and each team of reviewer, basically each person who's part of the review team will review a set amount of books and then make a recommendation to the lead reviewer. So in my case, I'm working with Dr. Philip Chase, who you may know from BookTube and being a generally all-round fantastic bloke, and for writing the Edan trilogy, which is a genuinely great series, and I need to read the final book, but also you need to read all of them if you've not read them. Now, Surviving Westcliff is the first one of the SPFBO books that I was assigned that I have finished. My initial kind of process for SPFBO was that I was going to read like around 50 pages of each book and then pick my favourite. And what happened was I read a few that I didn't really vibe with, and then when I started reading Surviving Westcliff, I kind of couldn't put it down, and I was like, do you know what, fuck it, I'm going to read the whole book. And that's what I did. I read the whole book and I absolutely loved it. So what is Surviving Westcliff about? Now, fair warning that this is going to be a spoiler-free review. However, I will be discussing characters and concepts and the kind of pitch for the book, if that makes sense. So if you want to go into this book completely blind, I can just tell you right now that I recommend it. I gave this book 5 stars. It's one of my favourite indie books that I've read in ages, especially indie fantasy stuff. Actually, I've basically only read good indie stuff, so yeah, it's great. And the interesting thing that I would say is that this book is described as being low fantasy, and I would say that this is almost no fantasy. So it's set in a fantasy world in terms of that it's not set on our Earth. It's set on a secondary world. With its own, countries and politics and nations and kind of structures and societies. And the basis of the book is that previous to the book starting, not long before it, there has been a siege, a very famous siege at a city called Bardem. And this siege went horribly, horribly wrong. And the enemy managed to get inside, and it was basically a massacre, and every part of the siege was mismanaged. Multiple people, lost family, friends. The army and navy that were stationed there were decimated, and it's pretty much a modern day atrocity. Well, not modern day, it's an atrocity in this fantasy world, and it's kind of touching the lives of all the characters. And we join a group of characters a couple of years later as they are banding together to try and build a new community, and basically set up a colony and a remote and uninhabited island. So they sail out on this boat, and they start to set up the base, and essentially we've kind of got a few people vying for power over this new colony. So we've got Edwin, who's the chief navigator, and the navigator of these kind of colony missions is also kind of semi in charge of the colony in terms of they design the layout for the colony, they split the food, and they hire people, and they direct things, you know. And then we've got the Duchess, who's the financier for the colony, and she's sailed out with them, but she's basically a drunk, and is either sleeping or half cut at all times. And then we have a mercenary group. So there's a mercenary group that's been hired to protect the new colony, and at the head of this mercenary group is a man who is known as Baron, who is very much a kind of shady character. He will kind of get away with as much as he can get away with. He'll take everyone for every penny he can. He serves his needs first, but he's very charming, he's very funny, he's kind of the lead in many ways, like he's one of the most important characters in the book. And there's just a lot that I really liked about him, and a lot of the dialogue for Baron and the like internal monologue for Baron genuinely made me laugh out loud, which is not a simple thing for books to do. A lot, I think, you know, because comedy, a lot of it is around timing, and that's the sort of thing that doesn't always come across in a book. But the way that Thomas Perkins writes Baron is that I feel like you can feel the cadence of the way that he speaks in the narration, in the dialogue, and the jokes that he makes and the funny observations that he makes absolutely slayed me on multiple occasions. I'm you know, sitting here with the e-reader just going like, huh, like genuinely laughing. So yeah, if you like a book that is fun but is not explicitly trying to be funny, this is a big rec from me. So Baron's kind of like one of the most fun characters, but then you have a few other backup characters or secondary kind of characters. So you have Jessie, who is one of the mercenaries, and she's run away from home to join this expedition. And I really like Jessie. Basically all the characters I felt pretty attached to straight away, which I think is because Thomas Perkins, I could just say Perkins, couldn't I? Perkins introduces each character chapter by chapter as the book starts. So it's like chapter 1 is this POV, chapter 2 is this POV, and we don't go back until the voyage kind of begins. So we get to know Jessie, and like she's kind of running away from a pretty strict upbringing, and then we get to know Ash, who is the assistant navigator. She's like the trainee under Edwin, and she's got like a lot of anxiety as a character, and struggles to kind of do her job in many ways. But yeah, really liked Ash as well. And then we have come to Dharma, who is kind of under a cloud, as it were, and he has some rage issues. And he is a soldier who's fought in the siege that we talked about earlier on. That's kind of one of the big inciting incidents for the book. And I think those are all the major characters that you get POVs from. You do get a few other ancillary POVs that I really liked. And one of the things that I thought was quite cool was that there's multiple supporting characters who aren't POV characters that I knew like straight away from the way that their dialogue was written, or like little notes of description about them. And I really grew to love a load of these characters, even the ones that you spend almost no time with, like Verna, who's like a love interest for one of the characters. I really liked her. And Quinn, the hunter, really liked as well. We spend a bit of time with her. So yeah, overall, I thought the book was really well written. I loved the characters. I think the prose is not just fun, but it's also very accessible and well written. I've noted a few typos, but you know, I've seen way more typos in some traditionally published books. I remember reading Dragons of Deepwood Fen and having to like note down the amount of typos and send them into the publisher because there were so many. But I wonder if that ever got updated. If you've read that book and it's not full of typos, let me know. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. The typos don't take you out of it at all. It's like one sentence in like, or the one that I remember is the word so, S-O-W, is accidentally put in for snow, and it's very clear what should have been there. You're never you're struggling for what word it should be. But anyway, that's not really what you guys are here for. Like, you know, typos will get fixed. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. And I think that the other books that are in my SPFBO selection are going to have to be really, really damn good for me to recommend them to Philip over Surviving Westcliff, which again, I had a genuinely 5-star time with. And I was messaging friends going like, oh, I'm not sure about these SPFBO because I've read 2 books and they just haven't grabbed me at all. And then I hadn't read them, but you know, I'd started 2 books. And then I started this third one that absolutely nailed it. Exactly the vibe that I was looking for. I was slightly disappointed that there was no fantasy element. So it feels like there's going to be for a good section of the book. But I don't think it's a massive spoiler to tell you this, but there is no fantasy element in the book that you know, the trouble that happens is very much a human trouble. So yeah, if I've spoiled the book for you there, I do apologise. I don't think that it does. It's referred to as low fantasy when it was pitched to us. And yeah, the best thing about this book as well is that it's also on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read this book for free right now. It's also quite reasonably priced as an ebook. If you don't have Kindle Unlimited, you don't want to spend out for a month just to read this book. Although there's tons of great books on Kindle Unlimited, but this one is one that I would really recommend. Love the characters, love the prose, love the story, was really engaged all the way through. And there's kind of like a big twist, or not like a big twist, there's like a reveal, which I had kind of guessed, but in a funny way, like I was like, it'd be quite funny if it was this, and then it ended up being that. Yeah, really good book, really enjoyed it, would really recommend you read it. That's 3 reallys, which I think is the cue that I should be ending this video. So cheers. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Thomas Perkins stuff from here on out when he writes any further books. And I'd love a sequel to Surviving Westcliff. Just want to say, Thomas, I assume you're watching because you said on Twitter you would be. I really want a sequel to this book. Another something Westcliff. You know, evolving Westcliff, saving Westcliff. I don't know. You're the writer. I'd love to see more with the characters that survive. And I won't spoil that for people who haven't read it. If you would like to read this book and I have convinced you to, please drop down into the comments below and let me know. And I'd love to hear your thoughts when you finish reading it. Also, if you liked this video, I would give it a like. That would be fun. And also subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more book reviews like this one. Next week, on Monday, there will be my review for sci-fi book Infinity Gate by M.R. Carey. Spoilers, this is another 5-star review that I absolutely loved. So stay tuned to the channel for that one. And then following that will be a review of Volume 1 of The Wandering Inn, which I've been reading since November last year. It's an insanely long book series, which is episodic. So I've been reading each chapter, 1 chapter per video, and giving a spoiler discussion about them. But this will be a non-spoiler review that will be coming in 2 weeks' time. For more future review content, please stick to the channel. For more SPFBO content, stick to the channel, and I will speak to you guys tomorrow.